Hello friends, Mehjabin here. Today I am going to talk about the impact of the British revenue systems on the Indian cultivators. So let's get started. When the British expanded their territories in India, they introduced several land revenue systems in the country. The four main ones were the permanent settlement system, the Ryotwari System, the Ijardari System and the Mahalwari System. Each of these land tax systems changed the situations related to agriculture. The conditions connected to land ownership also underwent tremendous changes. The land revenue demanded by the British government in India was so high that it led to poverty among the peasants. They were required to borrow a lot of money from moneylenders in order to pay the revenue, especially when the crops failed them as a result of drought or famine. The peasants were driven into debts. When they lost their lands, they became landless laborers. The next problem was the breaking up of the land ownership. When the farmers were no longer in the position to pay the revenue, they were left with no other option but to sell off their land part by part. This kind of frequent auction of land created fragmentation or breaking up of the land. In other words, the land got subdivided. These type of small land holdings were not economical to grow crops on. Another very critical problem that cropped up was the increase of absentee landlords. When the Indian farmers and zamindars were no longer in a position to pay the high revenue, their land was auctioned off to the highest bidder, who happened to be the person who was willing to pay the most amount of money. The people who purchased these lands had no knowledge of the adversities that the farmers had to face in the matters of cultivation. These buyers were usually rich traders who lived in cities and towns. They did not consider it important to visit their farmlands and had little or no interest in farming. These absentee landlords had no real experience of the sufferings of the peasant community. So, they treated the local farmers even more harshly than the traditional zamindars. The British government in India encouraged the cultivation of cash crops because they provided the raw materials for their industries in Europe. These cash crops brought the British government big sums of money. However, the country suffered a huge food shortage as there weren't sufficient food crops that were being grown in India. Another problem was the neglect of land quality. The British government permitted private ownership of land by the Indians. They did this so as to encourage the flow of steady revenue. The British thought that ownership rights would inspire the farmers and that they would get interested in improving the quality of their agricultural land so as to increase their output. However, the truth was that the landlords were either absentee landlords who lived in towns and cities who were least interested in improving the land that they possessed in the villages. In other situations, those landlords who lived in the rural areas were actually too poor with no money to undertake land reforms. As a result, the fertility of the land got affected. The conditions of the farmers also became miserable. So you can see that the poverty of the farmers, the high rates of land tax, the growth of middlemen and the rise of debt amongst the peasants resulted in the decline of agriculture. Famines became very common. Between the year 1858 and the end of the century, there were around 20 such famines in the country. That's all for today. See you all very soon in my next video. Bye.